So welcome everyone to this very exciting live session today with someone who's become a great friend of mine on a personal level, but we actually met through professional reasons, Marissa Brassfield. And she is the founder and CEO of Ridiculously Efficient, which is a name that I love. I have the sticker front and center on my computer, which I can't show you because I'm using the computer right now. But this is going to be, really something that we hope that you can learn a lot from, because in entrepreneurship, being efficient and ridiculously efficient is a secret weapon. And basically, we're going to use this session today to really dive into getting to know Marissa. And then, of course, the digital labs are there to continue to provide content and resources and mentoring around any of the topics that really speak to you personally and professionally, and really can help up-level you as an entrepreneur in terms of the impact that you're able to make. And I definitely can say from firsthand experience that Marissa is your superpower. She's worked closely with me. She's worked closely with the TFF team to really take, the limited resources that we have access to and supercharge them so that we can accelerate our impact faster and more efficiently, and also really lean into what, our core strengths are as individuals and as a team. And so we're really excited to share some of that secret sauce with you, because at TFF, we really believe that being successful in business is not just about having, a great business model and investor deck and pitch. It's really all about soft skills and, optimizing yourself and your team for maximum performance. So that's an incredible, skill set we're giving you access to today. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce Marissa, who, like I said, has become a great friend. Marissa, can you take the floor and introduce yourself and, share your awesomeness with our TFF community?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christine. And hello, everyone. I am so grateful to be with you today. I love TFF, love the mission. And as Christine mentioned, we met, back in 2014 or 15. Yeah. This was Lisbon time.
Lisbon Summit.
Yeah. When I was working with Peter Diamandis, and his second book, Bold, had just come out. And Christine wrote, and she goes, gosh, we have all the TFFers read Abundance. It's required reading. We're going to have them read Bold. Can we, get some early copies? And so we did some finagling and of course, logistics, international shipping logistics with a major book publisher are never easy,
right.
But we made it work. And the best piece about it was that I got to know Christine, got to know the TFF community, and I'm so moved by the energy that you all bring to food and agriculture and solving the biggest challenges on the planet, and importantly, the unique mindset that we collectively bring to our work and to everything that we do. And so that's definitely the underlying theme of me and everything that's going on. I have always been someone who knew that I did not want to work in a traditional corporate environment. I couldn't imagine going in 9 to 5, having a dress code, kind of being forced to socially pressured to wear makeup and do the whole thing. I wanted to live the promise that I read in Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, which was, working remotely and living your mini retirements and just enjoying life. That resonated so much with me that at the time I was managing some high-level restaurants in Philadelphia and Atlantic City. I was like, I've had enough of this. I'm moving back to my hometown in Los Angeles, and I'm going to make it work as a freelancer. And so I started out, I have a journalism degree from the University of Pennsylvania. I'm an ex-4 sport athlete. So there's lots of conversations about high performance that I can bring to bear in terms of work that are unrelated to what I do now. But anyway, I started out writing and editing. This is the early days of content marketing, what we would call it today. And I would approach websites that I really enjoyed or that were in a vertical like health or fitness that I cared about, and food as well. And I would say, hey, do you need some articles written for you? And at the time, that was a very lucrative market. So I started writing and editing. And I very quickly realized that the faster I could write articles and the higher quality those articles were by the time they were sent to the editor, the more money I could make. And so I started very quickly learning about personal efficiency and what kinds of environments I needed to be in to do my best work. That freelance activity got me noticed by a site called trendhunter.com. And very early on, they were a trend forecasting site where they would go out and prepare trend reports about fashion and cars. And so I took that skill of writing and editing very efficiently to that environment, and I started writing hundreds, thousands of short articles in all sorts of fields. And the purpose there was so that I could go to any car website and say, hey, I've got 1,200 articles on cars. Would you like me to write some content for you? And so I started finding all these unique opportunities in all sorts of sectors that I was interested in, just being creative, just being very experimental, and failing forward, honestly, with how I was gaining work as a freelancer. Fast forward to 2012, and my husband is deployed with the US Army for a year, and I'm at home in San Diego. We're living at the time, and I'm thinking, gosh, let me pick up another freelance gig. Let's see what happens. We'll try and make some extra money during this year that we're apart and just make the best of it. And I see this job ad, and it's busy entrepreneur seeks online community manager. And it's this crazy long list of all the requirements and the things that this person will have achieved in their first year on the job. And it was just all consuming. That busy entrepreneur turned out to be Peter Diamandis. And so when we worked together, and we worked together for 7 years, I was his right-hand person. And
let me
there's
just
construction going on behind me in case there's some...
No worries. Let me just interject at that moment of construction noise to just tell everyone who's on this call. Peter Diamandis is the founder of X Prize, which is a big incentive prize competition, a kind of mastermind around the power of, incentive prize competitions to incentivize innovation and kind of like motivate people to take steps towards solving big challenges. He's also the author of the 2 books that Marissa mentioned that actually have personally inspired me in a lot of the kind of like ethos around TFF, which are abundance and bold. And if you have the chance, I highly recommend those as readings that, can really help to spark some new mindset shifts and ways of thinking about the world and moving past this like model of scarcity and how we can actually tap into the power of abundance in our economic models and our technological models, and also like in how we are actually optimizing our lives and relationships and value systems. So those are 2 books that have heavily influenced me and TFF. And by the way, segueing back to you, Marissa, you had the chance to work with him and kind of like, tell us your story. Continue, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, in those 7 years, I was his right hand, and basically he would say his like right hand and left brain. So all the sort of creative storytelling elements are what I would bring to the table. And I really complemented Peter's strategy and, financial and business savvy with a lot of creativity. I love relationships and building relationships and enhancing them. And so we co-founded Abundance 360, which is his entrepreneurs mastermind. And every year in January, 360 entrepreneurs from around the world get together, and we provide a 3-day extravaganza that is all about education on where exponential technologies are going in the next 3 to 5 years, and then specifically what to do about them. And at the same time, because this audience is entrepreneurs, it's identifying your passion and specifically the moonshots that you want to take to make the world a better place. So some of them are in the food realm, some of them are in energy, education, clean water. So these are just ways that people who are successful in a traditional business, maybe it's marketing or insurance, they come to A360, they get fired up about technology in the future, and then they double down and create either some philanthropic activities or another business line. And so that's been tremendously just rewarding. But along the way, I also built up his online content engine. And so I recruited a small team around me called the Strike Force, and we were profiled in the September 2018 issue of Entrepreneur magazine. There was a 6-page article about us, and we sent a reporter around to follow us around and get our stories. And it's a fascinating read in what it, and ultimately these are all next generation thinkers who are super creative, super, just asking the what if questions, asking, coming from that place, that sort of beginner's mindset, and approaching business. And what we did is we experimented with business models and different ways to use technology within a brand representative way to do something that no one else had ever done. And so we spun out all sorts of experiments and courses and just experimented in the online marketing world a bit. And through that.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
Well, I just wanted to like kind of back up a little bit and just have you explain at a really high level about exponential technologies and what these can do for entrepreneurs who are bootstrapping, like many of our TFFers are, and, and this concept of like experimentation and rapid prototyping, maybe just like a little bit of a like tangent on that and then continue with it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So a big concept of Peter's work and Singularity University's work is the idea of the technological singularity. So in Ray Kurzweil's books, he projects the singularity between 2038 and 2045 is the point at which technology is doubling and accelerating. And at that magical point in time, it accelerates so quickly that we can't predict what's happening next. And so I think about the smartphone. I've got an iPhone, and the apps in it, the camera, the video, the maps, like Facebook, all these technologies used to be standalone products when I was younger.
I remember
some of you guys were born.
Exactly.
And having those physical products become essentially dematerialized apps that are free and freely available on phones all over the world. Like, that is one example of how today we are better equipped to do almost anything business related than our parents or our grandparents were, because we have such great access to information. And so some of the technologies that Abundance 360 tracks and Singularity University tracks, artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, the Internet of Things, machine learning, and everything that's going on with the abundance of data we have. There's all kinds of health technologies, like these wearables that we have. And so, virtual reality, augmented reality, there's 3 or 4 others that I'm forgetting, but basically they're all doubling in performance, and basically like their price is cut in half every single year. So we're getting access to faster and better and cheaper computing, which is letting us do all sorts of things. I think about the number of sensors that are in this little smart ring, and it would have been, maybe this big 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so by tracking all of that, I'll use one example, just one technology, artificial intelligence. You may have heard of deepfakes, or the ability for artificial intelligence algorithms to study video like this and audio and mimic very accurately what we're saying and how it's coming out. And so there's podcasting technology out right now that podcasters can use to take a transcript of a recorded interview just like this, and let's say I flub a word and I say something and I say describe and I meant to say something else. I can go back and edit that just like it's text, and that algorithm will take my voice and say the correct word, although I have not recorded that physical thing. Like, the fact that we have access to that right now is revolutionary. 2 years ago, we would have just had to re-record the thing and dub it over and edit it out. And so when it comes to innovation and how we approach our work, the individual innovators who are nimble enough, we don't have to go through layers and layers of bureaucracy to get something approved and get permission to go ahead and try something. We can just start experimenting with these technologies. Actually, you can move faster, make better decisions, because you don't have to have 6 or 7 people agree on the thing before you stop doing it. You just pivot and go. you can make decisions faster, you can operate faster, and ultimately find your way to a solution faster, better, cheaper, and easier than ever before. And it's continuing to get better.
Like you said, or like I said, this is a superhero strength that entrepreneurs have if we like lean into this. And I think that, I mean, just on your deepfake example, I mean, that's super cool. And already my mind is like buzzing about like, so much of what we hear about technology in today's narrative is negative, and like deepfakes are, influencing the political agenda, and, they're so scary. But like what I love about what you're saying, and also like very much about like what's in Abundance and Bold and some of these other books, is, the fact that these tools and technologies can also be used as a very strong force for good to maximize, the efficiency and productivity and positive impact of entrepreneurs who are bootstrapping their way forward. So that was like a great example of, I made a podcast, I made a super mistake. I don't have to re-record the whole podcast or, expensively edit it or whatever the case may be, or time consumingly edit it. There's these new technologies that can come along. And I'd love it maybe if you could throw out a few examples of technologies, apps, whatever you use that really are like these secret hacks we can all tap into.
For sure. So one other quick anecdote about technologies and why that happens. And, for me, I always look at why things are so, because when it's a great example of like why the news media is so very insistent on portraying the negative aspects of how technology goes. And so something that I learned from Peter is about the amygdala and the role of the amygdala in the brain. And its purpose is to help us spot the lion in the grass from, millions of years ago. And so our brains are wired to pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news. The news media knows this, and their primary business is to sell ads. So that's why the negative stuff will continue to make headlines. But what's happening is with the rise of the internet and social media and communities like TFF, we're able to curate news and share news that matters. So when it comes to drones, you can talk about the drones in the sky and how they're being police drones and surveillance and all that. Or you can talk about the drones that are being used to reforest, who are dropping seeds and that are being used to reforest the planet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the drones that are being used to transport organs to people who need them in minutes. It's like that's my rant there. But in terms of apps that save a lot of time, so I have a theory, and my theory is that a productive person will still be productive if you take away all the apps. So I'll give you some apps, but I want to preface it with the apps do not necessarily make someone more productive. It's how you think, it's what you focus on, it's how you communicate, it's how you spend your energy. Like that's the efficiency to me. And that's where folks level up, because apps can go down, they get sold, like they move on. I had an email app that I swore by. It was called Astro. I used it for years. I swore by it. It was acquired and then it was sunsetted, which is basically like they just let it die. They didn't, they're like, oh, we're not putting out any more updates. And I'm like, wait. So it's kind of like, never again will I let a tech company burn me because they run out of cash or get acquired and whatever.
That's a good point. Like the saying, like there's an app for that, has kind of become like a joke, right? And the point is we can't just rely on apps. It's actually like a mindset of how we're going to find these efficiency and productivity methods, right? No matter what.
And so these crutches, like a tool can become a crutch, but tools are good to have. So definitely a good calendar app. I use the Google Calendar app. It's nice and free. It works with all my emails. But the thing with that is, if you are very observant about how you block out time in your calendar, you can use that as a productivity tool. If, for example, I know that if I am live on camera for more than 3 or 4 hours a day, I'm exhausted. And so I can use that and take a look at the week ahead and go, okay, I've got 2 days where I am front stage, as I call it, and I need to bookend and block out time on the other days and make sure that I'm not scheduling calls on top of that. And I'm pushing back and saying, oh, actually, I'm pretty jammed up that day. Can we look at the following week? Or I'm going, I'm commuting. I live in Los Angeles, so commuting is a big deal. So I'm like, I have 3 days next week where I'm commuting. So I've got to protect the other days and have home days so that I can focus. So your calendar, when used strategically, can become a very powerful productivity tool in that way. Someone from the TFF community that I was speaking with uses his calendar he blocks out time for meditation and reflection, for exercise. And these are great ways to use your calendar, because for me, when it's calendar official, it's happening, and it ain't happening until it's calendar official. But when you build up that discipline about, if something is official, it's in the calendar, and I'll listen to what the calendar says.
Mhm.
That eliminates a lot of cognitive load, because you're not thinking, okay, what do I have to do today? Or when am I going to get this paper done? Or when am I going to work on this? Because you've blocked the time to do it. So that's one. I love Slack. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have no fewer than 8 Slack workspaces on my app, including the TFF workspace. But I love it because it's a searchable archive of everything that happens. I find that when communication, especially about work and projects, is split between SMS, Skype, email, and all these other sources, WhatsApp, there's not one place to look for anything. Oh, did I leave it in text, or is it in my email, or is it in Google Docs? But if you have everything in Slack, it becomes searchable. You can also, I kind of keyword stuff my messages in Slack. So I'll think of how I would search for that file later, and then I'll paste that link in to Slack into the right place so that I can just search for it later and very quickly find it. I also use emoji like reactions as shorthand for communication. So there's the one with the 2 eyes that's looking left.
I was wondering what that meant. So what is that? Yeah.
For me, it's like I'm looking at that thing. So if a team member tags me in a document, I'm like, oh, I'm looking at it right now. The green check mark means this is done. I'll use like a thumbs up for a simple acknowledgement. But there's like 3 or 4 of them. A rocket always means like ship it, send it out, let's go. And so if you have that shorthand that you're using with the people that you communicate with the most, you can save yourself 4 or 5 or 10 words with just that emoji, and it's a reaction, and you can use it anytime you're out. And that's another thing. And then, so, I'm using these very, very basic apps, and that's for a strategic purpose. Mm-hmm. I have a to-do list app that I enjoy. It's called Things for Mac, but you know what? There's lots of great to-do list apps. I almost challenge you to test them out. Test out a couple different ones, see which one works for you, because what works for me almost certainly won't work for you, because we all work and think and operate completely differently. So every 90 days, I have a practice called Destroy to Create, and I pick one part of my life to re-engineer. Sometimes it's email, and I try out a completely new email client, an email app. Sometimes it's my calendar. Sometimes it's my to-do list app, or how much time I'm spending on my phone, or my morning routine, my evening routine. But I just put it in the calendar. Okay, what am I reinventing this quarter? And it forces me to start from first principles thinking. Like, okay, take all my tools away. What is the fastest and best way to do this thing? And then let me find the tools that help me do that fastest.
I love
so it's almost like I'm tool agnostic in that way, because I'm constantly, and sometimes I'll test out a new email structure. I just did this for my last quarter. I didn't make it 3 days through that thing. I was like, no, this has got to go. The old way was faster. But I now know that. Because so often when we get into habits and routines, we get complacent. And that, like, complacency is the enemy of efficiency, because once we get into that routine, you go into autopilot. When you go into autopilot, you're not innovating. And when you're not innovating, you're not discovering, you're not breaking things, you're not discovering the new and better way to do it.
Oh my God. so much. My mind is buzzing. But like one of the things that's jumping out to me in everything that you're describing and these tips and tricks is the importance of really knowing yourself. So for example, when you're talking about like optimizing your calendar or using your calendar as a tool to like manage yourself and your agenda and your efficiency, you need to know, like, you know about yourself. You're like, I can only be on X number of hours a day. I know if I commute 2 days, I want 3 days of home time or whatever the case may be. So, and same with Slack. It's like like you like to search, right? And I always struggle like with Slack. I love it too, but then I lose things all the time in Slack because I actually am not perfect at using it as an optimization tool with stars and keywords and things. I actually need a little tutorial on that. Maybe we can add it into the digital labs. But it's making me think so much about like how we as entrepreneurs can get to know ourselves and how we tick so that we can like lean into these tips and tricks in the best way possible. And so I wondered if maybe you could talk about some of the things that you've introduced like me and the TFF team to that really can help us identify like our natural tendencies, which then can help us elucidate, the ways forward towards efficiency.
Oh, I love this. Okay, so this is like my favorite thing to nerd out about. So pardon me, I'm going to go on a rant. So the why behind all of this is, as individual entrepreneurs and performers, you've got to manage yourself. And you've got to manage yourself in a way that's very different than a lot of people in traditional work environments would manage their direct reports. You've almost got to manage yourself like a professional athlete, like an Olympian, like the top 0.1% of the world, because your performance is your success. It's everything. It comes down to how well you're able to create and think and operate in any situation. So it's so important to me that it's like, go and search and do the things. But here are some of the favorite tools that I've focused on. One is definitely the Colby A Index. It's KOLBE.com, and that's named for Kathy Colby. This assessment measures how you instinctively operate in 4 different areas. Fact finder, how much information you need to make a decision. Follow through, how you structure and organize information. 3, quick start, how you operate in times of chaos or uncertainty. And then implementer is simply what you do with tangibles and physical space. And so I'll break down how this manifests. Someone with a very high fact finder needs more information than other people do to make a decision. And so when I'm communicating with Christine, who has a higher fact finder, I know I've got to give a bit more detail than I would to my husband, Mike, who is a 4. He just needs the bullet points, like just what's the most important, and that's it. Follow through. This is me. I'm an 8 out of 10. And so I instinctively prioritize and order and organize everything. I can't help myself. I'm like, what comes first, second, third, fourth? That's the language I speak. So when there are a bunch of errands that have to happen and that Mike is going to run in a day, I can't help myself. I'm like, oh, so are you going to go to the market first and then the dry cleaner and then the this and then the this? Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm organizing it according to the most efficient route. It's just how I think. Now, Mike, so I'm an 8, Mike is a 1. This means he instinctively resists any kind of structure or order. He's like, don't put me in a box. Don't tell me what to do. Don't micromanage me. Mm-hmm. Another thing I should say about Colby is when you know 2 people's scores, anytime there's a 4 or more digit difference in those 2 scores, you're going to have some communication challenges. But the thing is if you know that, you can design your communication around it. So the purpose of Colby is to get different people's scores together and really create a diversified team so that there's all kinds of thinkers. Because, when you get a bunch of quick starts, which Christine also is.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs are quick starts, which simply means that you, in times of chaos and uncertainty, you improvise. You create something that didn't exist before. Someone who's low in quick start might actually resist change and go, oh, hey, wait a minute. Why do we need to reinvent the wheel? Why don't we just do it the way we did it last time? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just knowing that you need a balance on the team, because it takes everything. If there's too much quick start on a team, you're reinventing the wheel every single time, and there's no systems or processes, which is what businesses are built on.
For sure. And I can definitely share like firsthand experience, some of the like mistakes, or I don't know if mistake is the right word, but some of the experiments that we've run in TFF that we've learned from. So in years past, when we were introduced to Colby and we mapped our teams, we were all quick starts in the TFF core team. And so it answered so many questions about why we were like always coming up with brilliant ideas and, you know, maybe not always executing them really well, or having the process and infrastructure that we needed to grow as an organization, because there was never like an onboarding process, right? It was like, oh, we'll figure it out when they come on, or, you know, and then that actually limited ourselves. And so once I was introduced to Colby, it was like, okay, we can hire for, you know, the strengths and tendencies that we need in the team. And we can really like, again, develop our core competencies to really excel as an organization. So we can balance our, you know, predisposition to be quick starts and not have processes with people who have that as a natural tendency and maybe aren't fully on the other end of the spectrum, because, you know, having somebody who's like more there in the middle range, who understands how quick start ticks, but are there to optimize processes, it really helped us scale our efficiency and our impact in a way that like I didn't even know was possible. And suddenly like everything just started performing better. And, you know, miscommunication stopped happening, you know, kind of like the ability to grow and do things we never were able to do before became possible through optimizing the team. So again, I really think that's something, again, that it's a secret sauce for lean and mean startups, right? It's like, how do you build a team that can take you further, right, than you ever thought possible? And it's thinking through some of this type of thing, right? Like team optimization.
Totally. Yeah. And initially it may seem like, well, let's just get started. We don't need to spend all the time up front hiring. But the kicker is once you get into it, it can sometimes take longer to do things with the wrong team members in place than it would if you took the extra 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to find the right people, get the right people around the table, because that's when you start moving really fast. So Colby is one. Oh, and then the implementer is simply how you deal with physical space. So I'm very low. I think you are as well, Christine. So that just simply means we can imagine if there's a floor plan, we can imagine what it feels like. Whereas someone who's much higher will want to construct a physical, you know, they'll want some popsicle sticks and some glue, and you know, they'll want to
be the architect. Like, let's build a little model of this space. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we need people to design and build houses, and like I am not the person for that. So another really great tool that I love is Gallup Strengths. And so this is like the Strengths Finder books. And so in there, so Colby is how you instinctively operate. And StrengthsFinder is your top skills. What are your talents? What are the things that you've gotten good at through practice over your lifetime? So not surprisingly, my first strength is maximizer. I fundamentally believe everything can get better. My second is relator, and I love working one-on-one and in small groups. I can quickly build relationships and rapport with people. 3 is achiever. I have to personally be great at what I'm doing, and the people around me have to also be working very hard and at a very high level. Knowing that these simple things about yourself can help you surround yourself with the right people who build you up, who make you better, just by being around them. And then my other 2 are individualization, so I can, you know, break things down to the individual, and then strategic. I love building strategies. And so you can get the book and or do the test online, and it'll give you a report with your top 5 strengths. I know that some folks get all 34 of their strengths because they want them in order, and they want to see like what the ones on the bottom are. That's up to you.
Because and we'll provide the links to these assessments. And the theory of this StrengthsFinder is that, you know, we should be leaning into our strengths, not spending all of our time trying to like compensate for perceived weaknesses. I actually, you know, have taken the StrengthsFinder, and I was like not shocked by what my strengths were, but I was a little bit embarrassed about them, to be honest, because, you know, I came from like big business, and now I'm in like this entrepreneurship space, and I got these strengths that were all about like relationships and empathy. And actually my top one was activator, which is my predisposition to kind of like take action and be a quick start, which was a great alignment between Colby and StrengthsFinder. But one of the things in understanding the theory of StrengthsFinder is, again, like lean into what makes you uniquely you and your strengths. And, you know, like one of my strengths was positivity and empathy. And it was like, actually, you know what, for what I'm doing at TFF, these are great strengths. And I have been able to bring on board members of the team who have more like strategic mindset and, you know, competitiveness or efficiency built into their strengths, so that we become a sum that's greater than our parts, you know, versus somebody trying to like do it all and feeling bad about maybe what they aren't, rather leaning into what they are, right?
Oh yeah, and to double down on that, you know, so imagine we always get the advice like, oh, work on your weaknesses. Okay, so if you work on your weaknesses, and let's say you put a finite amount of energy into doing that, now your weakness, you become like pretty good at it, or like so. Maybe you become good at it. But if you took that same amount of energy and applied it to something you're already great at, now you're next level. Now you are, it's a superpower. It's so far advanced. And here's the other thing is, working on your strengths and sharpening your strengths is more fun, it's faster, it's easier, it's more exciting, and that makes it sustainable. And so my business is all about figuring out sustainable high performance, because anybody can be a rock star for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then inevitably we run out of gas, we get tired, we run out of fuel. And when that energy is spent, we either have to figure out how to become resilient and recharge, or you know, you just burn out and you never, it's like a one-hit wonder. You never come back and attain that same level of prestige. And speaking of prestige, one more assessment. I love Sally Hogshead's Fascination Advantage. And this is a branding focused thing, but I love it for entrepreneurs because this assessment is all about what others find fascinating about you, and how you can use what people find fascinating about you as language to describe yourself, your business, but it also helps me understand what to focus on. So my descriptor is the connoisseur, which is a mix of passion and prestige. And so for me, curation, helping elevate a standard, those are all things that Sally Hogshead would say to focus on as part of that archetype. Well, that certainly fits into maximizer and strategic and all the things in my StrengthsFinder. And it certainly matches my Colby, which is all about organization and prioritization. And so figuring out for me how to spend your energy, what to focus on, what to do first, second, third, all these things mix in together so beautifully. And so the benefit, you can find benefit out of any one of these things, but it starts getting better and better the more you learn about yourself, the more time you invest into that discovery, because nobody else is going to own the responsibility of your self-development more than you. And also no one's going to have the benefit, reap the benefit of that discovery more than you, because when you know yourself, you can focus your efforts, your energy, you can spend time in a way that lights you up. And that's what life is about to me.
Absolutely. And we talked about this. So we have another session that we offer in our TFF Digital Labs around founders therapy, right? And so it's like a space to really get a little bit leaning into this self-discovery, like you called it, and also just really getting through the roller coaster journey and the emotional journey that entrepreneurship is. And one of the things we heard in founders therapy was the importance of really understanding yourself, your values, how you tick, is I think what you're talking about here too. And not only does that help you stay focused and get through the highs and lows that come with entrepreneurship, it also helps you tap into these opportunities around productivity and efficiency, because you can really develop your team and your work rhythm, right? To lean into all of these things. And so that's been definitely also something that we really focused on in our TFF core team. We're not a startup per se, but I really think we are a startup. We're going through a lot of the same things that our TFFers around the world are going through. We're a remote virtual team, by the way. And I think these types of tools are extremely helpful in that type of like context, which many early stage entrepreneurs are. We're, bootstrapping, and we're trying to create massive impact, and get people to notice us. And this is like very analogous to like what many of our startups are doing. And so we can really empathize with what their needs are and share these types of tips and tricks, like around the importance of finding yourself and around the importance of like finding these efficiency, opportunities. One question I have specifically around the fascination advantage, as you were describing that, it sounds like it could be applied not only to you yourself to find out what your fascination factor is, but also like potentially to your product or business that you're selling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they have a brand focused one where you fill out, based on who your customers are and how you're positioned in the market. So the questions are just a little bit different. But what I love about it is you do it for yourself, the founder, the COO in your life, but also for your brand separately. And then you kind of put them together.
Sure.
And that's how you communicate in the context of your brand.
Totally.
Because you'll have different team members and they all have different fascination advantages. And so they might leverage a different strategy to capture the market that fits in. So like Ridiculously Efficient is an innovation brand. I'm sure TFF is as well. And so it's like the language of innovation for me also has to intersect with passion and prestige.
I love that. And so just going back really quick to these assessments, because I'll just tell you like a thing that we've done in TFF, thanks to your guidance, is we actually have like an Excel sheet where we have every team member with all of this mapped, right? And it is like something we share openly with each other. And it's gotten us through like hard conversations, where there have been misunderstandings in our team. It's like, oh, I see, like you needed more information, Christine, because you're a high fact finder and I only sent you the bullet and that caused you like unease. So that I think is a very practical tip for people to think about as they're building their teams, is like the, having that, open and as a discussion area for people, right?
Oh, definitely. It's a common language because when you have that common language to understand how people are different and communicate those differences and why they're beneficial, it's only helpful. I've seen in other situations where they don't have that common language, it's so easy to go, well, she's micromanaging me. She's telling me what to do. She doesn't trust me. Well, wait a minute. No. I trust you. It's just, I can't help myself when I'm trying my hardest. I structure, organize, and prioritize.
Right. I'm sending you a checklist because this is what I love to do. Yeah. That's very cool. And so I think like what I think is a, big like opportunity for early stage entrepreneurs is around setting up these processes. So, really taking the time to understand yourself, understand the team around you. And another big lesson I learned from you and also through the experience of like building and running TFF is like the importance of, again, like developing these common team rituals, understandings, core beliefs, and also like contracting upfront about like what things are important and how you're going to like get through, misunderstandings or whatever it may be. And so we've seen that in TFF teams, et cetera. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit about maybe some of the tips and tricks you have, right? As you're like building a team that's like all hands on deck, trying to do things, trying to like act quickly, and like how you can still like optimize, right? So you can get through these situations that could be potentially difficult or fatal for the organization.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So a couple things. When in any fast-moving organization, there's inevitably going to be meetings or major decisions that happen where the full team is not present. So having some mechanism where decisions are captured and communicated out to the rest of the team, that's pretty critical, just so that everyone is up on the changes, especially when you have team members who are lower in quick start. They'll need to walk into any changes to the plan that happen because they just need to adjust more. They might need more information about why the thing changed. So some things, some teams have just a simple Google Doc of, current priorities and how things have changed, and then they can reorder and ask questions. Other teams have like a wiki where it's like a backstage organization, and it's almost like a website, and it's got links to the different departments and areas. Some people use Slack, and they'll have a dedicated Slack channel to specifically decisions or business or backstage. But something where that's transparently captured and organized, or at least left for posterity. That's a big one, because the changes in context in, as decision making progresses, like that's a big area of angst in teams. Another one is values and how decisions are made. If your team has a consistent set of core values that are communicated, you can then start to delegate decision making. On the Peter team, we had a very dedicated exercise around discovering our core values. And some of them were, one of them was no quick hits, which basically was short term for like every decision that the team makes has to have a long-term focus. It can't just be about a short-term money grab, something that'll make us money right away, but is not really congruent with our ethos.
Right.
Another one is courageous persistence, which means we don't stop. Even when it's uncomfortable, we'll keep going and make it through. And these little elements of your values, when the team shares that same value set, all decisions are being made from a place of integrity, consistency, congruency, and that's a really important element of sustainability for businesses.
I love that. And, we've developed like our TFF values. It's something too that when we're like putting out, job profiles, they're listed there. And we have some similar type of things like fire in the belly, grit and stamina. And these are the kinds of things we're looking for. And I think it's important for organizations to define that, because it also attracts personalities, right? Who believe in, stand for like your ways of working. And another thing that we've done in TFF, again, thanks to all of your like coaching and, guidance, is we've set up, like, because we are a virtual team, really scattered around the world, we've set up like rituals and ways of working, which has also like really transformed our efficiency. So we have, 2 sets of weekly check-in calls. Monday is like a more informal call. We bring the whole team together and really just like, hey, what's planned for the week? How was your weekend? Just kind of like light to connect everybody, mindset for the week. And then we have our Wednesday like core team call, which is really with a like tight buttoned up agenda, decision points, that one's a bit longer. And then of course, we have like Slack and all kinds of other ways to communicate with each other. And I just wondered if you could speak a little bit to like the importance of setting up these ways of working for, again, the community we're dealing with, which is like young, early stage entrepreneurs in every part of the world, and some tips and tricks to keep in mind, right, as they're getting going with really being a startup.
Yeah. And so, my number one thing is keep the agility in mind. Discipline, and I'm always like a fan of less meetings over more meetings, but a lot of us have had internship environments or early jobs where your day is meetings and calls. And so we kind of think that, oh, well, this is what business is supposed to look like. So my first thing is like, understand the most important things that need to happen for the business to move forward and progress. Start with, I love that twice a week cadence, just something that keeps folks accountable, something that feels achievable. Maybe it starts out every Monday. How are we starting the week? What are everyone's 3 big priorities? What are the outcomes that you're going to create this week? Or what are some blockers that are in your way of achieving that, so that, the team can help support you? And then maybe at the end of the week or the middle of the week, it's sort of a check-in on the progress, and just a real quick one, but keep them no longer than they need to be. Super action focused. Everyone has done their thinking, and it's just anytime you get folks together,
have a purpose.
Exercise, have a purpose, and look around and add up everyone's salaries and their, and what the value of that hour is for the business. And especially when you're a lean operation, it's like, are we making, and you look around, and whatever that number is for you of the total is like, this is a $20,000 decision. This is a $50,000 decision. Is this time, how can we best use this time together? And not to be afraid to speak up and say, I think we could have made this an email. I think we could have made this. And so, a lot of teams will start out with the calls, and which is always great to have that FaceTime. Zoom makes it very easy. And then I have a lot of teams that meet once a week, and then they do a digital dashboard where they're simply reporting their numbers. And it's like, okay, everybody have your numbers reported by this time in this time zone on this day. And
Yeah.
it's just an agreement. And so that accountability where there's a way to report on metrics, but still keep the folks together. And then, keeping it light, having an agenda, understand what in advance, what you're trying to accomplish, who's leading it, who's taking notes, what you're doing thereafter. I love otter.ai as a tool to automatically capture and transcribe and record notes. You can annotate, you can tag people in them. And it's a really great way to say, well, actually in this meeting, you said that on Friday you would have this thing done. And then to be able to check in with folks, and then to have a place where those calls and transcriptions are archived. Because when you're operating in multiple time zones, inevitably there's someone who was joining the call at a time that is totally inconvenient for their time zone, and they may need to refresh their memory at a later time. And so that lets them do it, lets them do that. And then if they weren't able to join, they can always review it later.
And I love that you just mentioned otter.ai, because that's like a great tool, like you said, to do transcription. So getting super practical here. So a lot of our entrepreneurs are going to be having to design pitch decks and, make things quickly, right? That then they have to iterate based on feedback. Like, I feel like even in TFF, so much of my time is just spent like making decks. Do you have any tools that you can point us to that can help like make that process more efficient?
Oh yeah. I love like Creative Market and Envato. Envato. Let me just look up this website. Yeah, I think it's on Envato Elements. And I basically I go online, I download a template, and it's like $20 and I use it for everything.
Oh, nice.
But having a template like that, where it's very consistent, you find your icons that you like and you download the deck of the free icons and you just have that stuff in a folder. And then, you see what works. If a pitch was successful, keep that thing and model it and just, and make just a few tweaks to it. But initially, when it comes to collaborating, I love Google Slides because you can get close enough with the designs, and you can even go on Envato Elements and buy a Google Slides template. But I just love the ability for like real-time collaboration, and then the ability to look at it on your phone and not have to download the software or sign into your license or whatever.
I always joke because I live in two worlds, like I came from like big corporate and now I live in the world of startups, and you can always tell who you're going to talk to over email if they send you a PowerPoint or a Google Slides link, because like PowerPoint is like what all the big companies use. And like, I've totally lost my ability, right, to be able to navigate PowerPoint, and I've totally gone into either Google Slides or Keynote, because I find them both like very like user friendly. But it's just really funny to see like Google Slides, I think Google has a great suite of tools for entrepreneurs, and they're free, right? And so, they're not perfect, but they're great and they're free. So it's, and then the other, I know like we've used things like 99 Designs when we were like designing some branding materials, and also like Fiverr. Of course, it can be like hit or miss, but sometimes those kind of like quick crowdsourcing tools can also be a cost-effective way, right, to get some ideas.
When it comes to logo design, branding identity, some of those things that you may not initially have someone like a go-to person to like, hey, can you whip me up a logo? And or you want some fresh ideas. I love 99 Designs. I run about 2 campaigns a week for clients. So I am always in that tool. It's funny that I didn't.
Well, there's so many. Like that's the thing is like we only have an hour, but like we could keep going. And that's the beauty, by the way, of the Digital Labs. I'm just going to do a little self-promotion here, but like the Digital Labs is there as a tool, one, to like introduce our innovator community to amazing thinkers and doers who are part of our ecosystem, people like you. And it's also there to like, have them share with each other tips and tricks and ideas and failures. By the way, we also, like you, adopt this kind of fail forward mindset, which is like, guys, get on the Digital Labs and help each other out and share, stuff even we don't know about in TFF, and we can learn from you. And like, we're here to foster global collaboration, to accelerate the speed and impact that we're trying to make on our food systems, to reduce reduce duplicative efforts, to maximize our efficiency and productivity, and to solve once and for all the food system transformation, right, that we're trying to create. And we believe that the next generation is the best equipped generation ever, to be able to do this. Thanks in large part to all of the stuff that you spelled out, Marissa, like the fact that we have access, unprecedented access to powerful tools and technologies that previously were only available to like the richest corporations or universities and elites of the world. We can now access those, and do things with them. I mean, we've just partnered with WikiFactory, which provide, you mentioned drones at the outset of this call, like they provide open source blueprints and knowledge on how to build, drones. Anyone can do this anywhere in the world, right, to solve a challenge. And I think, in urban farming, there's like a million examples. So this kind of like DIY attitude is very much too part of like what we stand for. And I personally, I mean, this could go on and on, but like I said, like the digital labs is the place where we want to see this conversation continue. We've built the digital labs based on so much of the learning that you've imparted to us. It's a minimum viable product. We're collecting data in real time. We're iterating on the go. And the idea is to like get stuff out there. It's not perfect, everything that's on there, but it's like we're trying and gaining data, right? That helps us build a better product in this kind of like evolutionary way. So I really have to say, you have just impacted us at TFF so much. With, all of the practical tools you've introduced us to, also with the mindset, right, that you've brought on how to really think like an entrepreneur in this like strike force mentality. I can't thank you enough for what you've done for TFF and like all that you're sharing now here with our innovator community. And I'd love to, close this out by inviting everyone to continue the discussions, bilaterally with us and with Marissa, and then also in an open and collaborative way on the digital labs. But before we stop, I'd love to just hear some final words from you, Marissa, to like inspire our innovators and kind of just like impart the amazingness that you stand for further into TFF. So last words with you.
No pressure. Well, one note on failure. Failure is this like ego thing where it's like, it's success or failure. But the reality is that it's all learning. So, when we were kids and we were learning to crawl and walk and run and skip and all of that, like it wasn't failure when we fell down. It wasn't like we just kept going. Yeah, it was cute and fun, and we got up and we kept going. Somewhere along the line we forgot that it's okay to get up and keep going, to stumble, to skin your knee, to fall down in the middle of the playground in front of dozens of kids, and get up and just keep on playing. And that's something that this community instinctively gets, but a lot of the world does not. And already by pursuing this entrepreneurial lifestyle, we are aliens. There are very few people who can relate to the ups and downs, the choices we've made in our personal, professional lives to pursue this path. And there are family members who won't understand why we do what we do. They'll call us workaholics or whatever, and career focused and all of that, and priorities wrong. But the truth is that it is the people who think differently that are the ones who are changing the world, making it a better place. And the fact that we can get together digitally, we're in different continents right now, and have a conversation that thousands of people who are all around the world can enjoy later on, and that it's just the start. Like, this is magical. We live in a magical time. It is just getting better, and it's because of the people in this community and the people that we influence and communicate with. So I'm so grateful to be here, to be part of the TFF mission and journey. I'm proud to know all of you, and I look forward to continuing the conversation, to supporting your growth, because my mission is to help as many change makers as I can, because the way that I change the world is by helping people like Christine and all of you. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for everyone's time today. And I cannot wait to see what you all create in the world.
It's going to be exciting. Thank you so much, Marissa, from the bottom of our hearts. And we look forward to continuing to collaborate with you and to just kind of like, spread all of your knowledge and expertise into our community to really amplify the impact that they're capable of making. So thank you so much. And that is the end of this live session, but more to come. Thank you all for participating and watching, and we'll see you soon on the Digital Labs. Bye.